Okay. Well, welcome everybody to Peace Actions of Staten Island's annual meeting. This is a special year for us because it marks the 20th anniversary of the founding of Peace Action of Staten Island. And every year we do a war dinner where we honor people for their work in the Staten Island community. So I think this year will be a special celebration for us. And we certainly hope to have you with us. Tonight, we are honored to have as a special guest speaker, Kawthar Abdullah. She is with the Yemeni Alliance Committee, and she's going to hopefully give us an update of what is happening in Yemen and also inform us how we can get involved and try to move Congress to end U.S. involvement in the war. But first, we need to attend to some business at hand. This is the meeting where we present our slate for the new board for the year 2022-23. And I'm going to ask our secretary, Joanna Fredericks, to put the list up and read it for us.
Hi, I'm Joanna. Our slate for the year is Eileen as chairwoman. Debbie and Dave Polshuk are going to be co-treasurers. There you go. Me, the secretary. And then there's the at-large board, Tatiana Aguelo, Neil Berry, Jack Bolenbach, Brooke Krause, Joe Mudgett, and Soji, I'm not sure, Olawole, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joanna. Are there any objections to the slate? And in order to vote, you must be a member of PASI and also current, with your dues. So do we have enough people, enough PASI members to vote? I think let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we have 7. Sally, you're on mute.
We could check the bylaws to see what constitutes a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe we'll take the vote when more people arrive.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. Before I ask Sally to introduce Kawthar, I just want to talk about 2 groups that we have, 2 working groups. One is already in progress. The other one we're hoping to start shortly. We have formed a working group on the issue of Ukraine. So we've been meeting and discussing how we can get involved in the Staten Island community and how we can, educate people on what's going on. So we've been meeting every couple of weeks, and our next meeting is on Thursday, the 26th at 6 p.m. You're welcome to join, and we are hoping to start doing some tabling in June, and we are working on a possible webinar. So it's an issue that we need to address, and we're putting our heads together and trying to come up with ideas. We also have a group that we're looking to form hopefully shortly, and that's on healthcare for all, not warfare. The defense budget keeps increasing and people's needs keep growing too, but they're not being met. Over 25 million people in this country have no health care. And even if they have it, they don't use it because they can't afford the co-pays. And I was just reading something the other day from Project Hospitality that on Staten Island alone, 1 in 5 children live below the poverty line. So these are things that are just, it's just not acceptable. So if you'd like to be involved in either of these groups, you can contact us. Sally, can you put the contact information in the chat, please?
Sure. pasi.contact@gmail.com, but I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Okay, so let's begin. Sally, would you do the honor of introducing Kawthar?
Sure. So I have met Kawthar at several demonstrations to end the U.S. involvement in the Yemen war, and she's always there with her friends and also with her niece, who loves her very much. And she's always had an amazing voice and really connecting us in the United States and in New York City to what is happening in Yemen. And we're really privileged to have her, as Eileen said. So Kawthar is a Yemeni American woman who juggled between Yemen and New York City throughout her life. She's an organizer with the Yemeni Alliance Committee and leads the New York chapter of that committee. She's also a manager of a nonprofit organization. Oh, I may have to mute you, David. She's also a manager of a nonprofit organization in New York City dedicated to the empowerment of women, which is the Women's Empowerment Coalition of New York City. And she holds a bachelor's degree in Middle Eastern Studies and International Relations. So do you want to start out and talk tell us a little bit about yourself? And Eileen has some questions for you.
Thank you very much, Sally. Kawthar, could you tell us, please, what is the Yemeni Alliance Committee?
Hi, everyone. So it's good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I've seen Sally at numerous actions, I think since starting 2016. So a little bit about YAC. We are an action advocacy group composed of volunteer Yemeni American organizers, and it was formed in the Bay Area of California. We also have chapters in Michigan and New York. I lead the New York chapter. So we are nonpartisan. We instead insist on the sovereignty of Yemen, and we came together to push back against our government's role in the oppressive policies on our family's homeland. We organize protests, draft and sign on to advocacy letters, coordinate lobby visits with lawmakers and elected officials. We create toolkits. And we really generally just write for various outlets on the plight of Yemen for Americans. Because we know that warmongering is systematic, our goal have been to push policies that are for peace and stability of Yemen and away from global militarism, imperialism, and away from waging endless wars. So,
How long has this committee been in existence?
so it started in 2017.
And how many people are involved? Just, approximate. A lot.
So Jihan Hakim, I'm not sure if you guys know who she is. She is the chair of the Yemeni Alliance Committee, and she's based in California. So and the co-founder, she's the co-founder, and another person she co-founded with Hassam, he's taken a step back. So it's really just her and me at the moment. We do have our volunteers in Michigan sometimes, but like they sometimes have life happens, so they'd have to sometimes step back. So our Michigan chapter is inactive currently, but for the most part it's me and Jihan at the moment. We do have volunteers that come and go, but primarily Jihan and I
give you so much credit. It sounds, but you're so committed, and that's what makes the difference, Can you give us an overview of the Yemeni community in New York City?
Yeah, sure. So the Yemeni community in New York City, they're throughout the 5 boroughs and in Long Island and Westchester. You can find them anywhere, basically. They are hard workers, and it's when it comes to organizing against the war in Yemen, it's hard to mobilize our community here just because a lot of them are apolitical.
Oh,
Just they work in stores and they have like families to feed back home. Like many different family members rely on them, and some of them they have taken stances on the war, and it tends to be an opposing one. And so it's extremely hard organizing the Yemeni community at large, especially here in New York City.
hmm.
Yeah.
Out of fear that it might jeopardize their safety or their jobs, is that part of it?
It's not really, it's more of like, I guess for the non-political ones, yeah. But for the political who are active or I guess don't want to engage and or join the anti-war movement is sometimes interests are not politically aligned.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, what role do you think we, peace activists, people who want to see things, change, how can we help end the war in Yemen?
Oh, definitely. I think that conscious humans all over the world have really tried to lift the Yemeni cause to world stage, to leaders all over. And it's people like you on a Thursday afternoon, evening, actually meeting to talk about Yemen and whatnot. It's that's so important, and I think that like if you're an organizer, incorporate Yemen into your existing advocacy efforts. Talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors about Yemen, what's happening. Reach out to your elected officials. Tell them like if we have a war powers resolution coming up, like ask your representatives to to vote yes on it, or like just follow the lead of like action items that is coming from like Yemeni led anti-war organizations. Yeah.
Kawthar, we understand that they're trying now they're trying again to get a war powers resolution passed in the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And that would require the US to withdraw all aid to Saudis and the UAE related to the war in Yemen. Can you explain how a war powers resolution works?
Yeah, so a war power resolution basically restricts the president's authority to wage a war without congressional approval, something that Barack Obama did when it came to the war in Yemen. He did not, it was never authorized by Congress. The continued military support, the refueling of Saudi warplanes mid-air, and all of the logistics, war logistics intelligence was never authorized. And so this war powers resolution restricts the president's authority to do so without congressional approval.
What do you think the prospects are that the war powers resolution will pass in the House and in the Senate and will not be vetoed by President Biden?
This is a good question. Really, we'd like to be optimistic. It's going to be introduced soon. We're expecting JPEL to introduce it in a week or so. When it comes to the war powers resolution, it was under Trump, it was passed twice in both houses, and then vetoed twice, unfortunately. And now that you have a Democrat president and you have a House majority Democrats, and it's disappointing to see that it hasn't been introduced earlier, nor is there widespread support for it. So that's just been concerning. I do hope that it passes in both the House and the Senate. it's like Yemen has been used as I guess, a tokenized issue under Trump. The Democrats were saying, oh yeah, like Yemen, we're gonna reevaluate our relations to the Saudis and whatnot, yet we're continuing selling billions of dollars to the Saudis. When it comes to the Saudi Arabia, we like to think that we're gonna have I guess, a more examined relationship with them, giving all their all the crimes they've committed inside of Yemen and elsewhere in the region, but we continue to provide them with military support. The relationship is stronger than ever, and so that's very disappointing. We're very, again, hopeful. We've been organizing, lobbying elected officials. We just really have our fingers crossed and hoping for the best, but this is where you guys come in, where you guys reach out to your elected officials and just keep telling them to vote yes on this war resolution. The US needs to stop selling arms that are used by Saudi Arabia on Yemenis. Those arms that are being sold, those bombs are land on Yemeni homes, hospitals, supermarkets, anything and everything resourceful. Chemical weapons have been used. Chemical weapons are banned under international law. So like when those chemical weapons are used on like farms or whatnot, even farmers after 7 years still won't be able to use that farm for landing. So it's a very, very draconian measures that the Saudi UAE-led coalition are using inside of Yemen. It's destructive.
If the War Powers Resolution did pass in the House and the Senate, given the military support for the Ukraine, what do you think President Biden would do? Do you think he would veto it?
I'd like to think not. I would like to see that. I would like to see it passed, especially given what's happening in Ukraine, and the US is leading a moral campaign against Russia intervening inside of Ukraine. Yet it showed the hypocrisy of the US stance when it comes to Yemen. And so it couldn't be more timely. We can use the language that he's been using to condemn Russia. We can use it when it comes to Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Like, if you're going to be anti-interventionist, if you're going to support the people, the country, and all of this moral high rights languages that the Biden and the White House have been using, it can rightfully be applied to Saudi UAE-led coalition inside of Yemen. So let's hope that they're consistent in that regards.
Yemen is a small country. The population, 30 million, gross domestic product, 65 billion. Why is the internal civil war matters? Why does it matter so much to so many countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Israel, and the US?
That's also a great question. And so, like, Saudi Arabia has been after Yemen for decades. There's a history of invasions, land grabbing, and Saudi Arabia also has a geopolitical interest in Yemen, and it wants to control Bab el-Mandeb, which is Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is the fourth most important trading route in the world. It's located between Somalia and Yemen, and it has over 6 billion barrels of oil through it daily, and it's the gateway to the Red Sea. It connects Asia and Africa, the continent. So like the Gulf is only wealthy due to its oil production, and oil is so essential. And so economic superpowers want to help the Gulf, their allies, control these points, not just in Yemen, but also in like different parts of the world. So this is what happens is in Yemen is a focal point for the global economy. Yeah. And like, not to mention that Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, they're more ideologically aligned with Iran. And so Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries were not on unfriendly terms with Iran, should I say, are political nemesis. So it won't be, and given that Yemen is border Saudi Arabia, it wants, I guess, to feel that they want to continue their control inside of Yemen, and in Yemen, like historically speaking, well, not historically, like for the last 30 years, 40 years now, Saudi Arabia has always had a hand in what happens in Yemen. It has a say in our educational books, what's being taught in school. It has to have final say. Our economics interests, or what happens in structure, whatever it is, Saudi Arabia has always had a say. And if Ansarullah were in power, given that they fought them war so many times, they've also wouldn't like that. So they wouldn't have a say with them.
Do you feel that the Shiite Houthis are winning?
So I just wanted to clarify, because I know like this war is being framed as sectarian, it's a Sunni versus Shia war, and I just wanted to say that the war in Yemen, it's not inherently sectarian. Zaydis, that those are subsect of Shias, who Ansarullah, and I just want to also point out, the Ansarullah is a political movement. It's not a sector. It's not a religious movement per se. It's named the Houthi. Just some of its leaders belong to a Zaydi sect. So not all Zaydis are Houthis, and not all Houthis are Zaydis. So I just wanted to point that out. And there's a history of Yemenis, whether Sunni or Shia, intermarry and whatnot. Sectarianism it's being used to recruit people on both sides, to add fuel to the fire, but it's not inherently sectarianism. And they've used sectarianism to recruit, and it's becoming so polarized.
So then if we were to ask who's more prosperous, the Shiites or the Sunnis, is maybe that's
That's exactly what's
hard to determine. Yeah.
It's not about Sunnis or Shias at this point. You have Sunnis, you have Sunnis who are part of the Houthis or Ansarullah. It's a political movement. And so when they say Sunni or Shia, it's not inherently sectarian. That's what the media wants to frame it as such, but it's not as that at all. It's not a religious war.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, really. Given Yemen's humanitarian crisis, how are the people dealing with this? How are they sustaining themselves?
So Yemen right now, it's I don't know if you guys know of like the statistics, but I will share them later. But the situation in Yemen right now, it's dire. It's so bad. Like no matter whenever the media posts something and they show the worst humanitarian crisis of the century and all of this titles and headlines and whatnot, but it's even worse, 10 times worse than what's being reported. When I speak to my cousins back home, and the ones that are in the village, they're like, there's people who would eat only once a day a meal if they're lucky, or a mom would have like every 2 days a meal, or they'll have just rice in because they're starving, or they resort to other means. Or the ones that were well off, they were teachers and they were able to support themselves. They were fine. But now the riyal, the currency, has dropped. It's no longer has any value. The economy is crippled basically. And all the prices has gone up, whether it's the fuel, the food, expenses, and it's because of the Saudi UAE imposed blockade. And I think that's one of the silent killers that no one talks about. But these people in Yemen are living under horrible conditions, inhumane conditions to say the least. They are deprived of basic human rights necessities. whether it's water, whether it's electricity, whether it's food, whether it's just basic human things that like you would never think of being deprived of. And with all of this, they're still optimistic. They're still they try to survive at this moment. They're in survival mode.
Well, according to the UN, they're saying, of course, the largest humanitarian crisis in the world, and they're saying 24.1 million people, which is 80% of the population, need human aid. And they're predicting that another 19 million will go hungry in the coming months. And they're saying more than 160,000 people will face famine-like conditions. And then with the reduced supplies of wheat from the Ukraine, that's going to push the levels even higher. You know, we can read about these figures, but to really understand and really say these figures represent people, human beings. You know, it's
yeah, I know it really does. And my aunt, she's a teacher, and her salary has been stopped for months. And like she alhamdulillah, like thank God, like if you have family abroad, like they can support you in one way or another. It's those who don't, who are orphans, who have become orphans because of the war, who have lost their jobs, who have lost for those who are taxi or car drivers or whatnot because of fuel, because of the blockade. They've lost their jobs and their only source of income and whatnot. But like when I speak to my aunt, and she tells me of the horror stories, and it's so sad, because these people that were once well off, that, and it's because of war. Like our house was bombed, like just within ashes. It was bombed, and like my uncle's house that he built, he saved up it was a lifetime of savings that he just within seconds was reduced to ashes, and many other homes that have been bombed. And like, it's just, they just see their lives and their livelihoods flash right within their eyes within seconds, and that's what's devastating. They will never be compensated, and it's not just about livelihood anymore. It's about family members that are killed for being at the wrong place at the wrong time, lack of safety, the mental health toll that it would take on the poor people, and just have been suffering under this war for now. We're entering 8 years. I have a cousin who's 9 years old, and my aunt tells me that he can't sleep if he doesn't hear the loud noise or whatnot, because all his life he was born into this war. Like, it was before that, it was clashes and whatnot. Now it's like a war and airstrikes, and just the mental effect that this will take on him and all those surrounding. And people are becoming desensitized to it, and it's unfortunate because like no one will be held accountable for it. When push comes to shove, Saudi Arabia will walk free with immunity like they've always done, and they do everything they do in Yemen is because they know they can, and that's what sucks, and that's what's horrible. And Yemenis watching Ukraine gets all the attention and the sympathy from the world, yet they're going through this for 8 years now because they're like their skin color or their religion, or they're in a different geographic location, and so it makes them feel less of humans because of this.
That's what was one of the questions, why do you think the Yemeni people are being treated differently, and you just spoke on some of the reasons, and how do you make people aware of that? How do you break that, the way people break down that toxic way that people are looking at the situation?
I guess it's really just us as humans trying to elevate Yemen in any way that we can. whether it's, again, following the lead of anti-war organizations that have action items, sharing about what's happening in Yemen with your friends, family, meeting with your representatives, incorporating Yemen into your existing advocacy efforts, and just overall show up when you need to. If there's an action for Yemen, if you can be there, encourage your friends to be there. One person really can make a difference. One person can inspire another person who inspires another person. We have to be our own media if they're not willing to give us airtime.
As devastating as this is, we still have to believe that that our work will make a difference. How do you see this conflict being resolved, or what, or steps towards the resolution?
Yeah, so there's a truce currently, and we're entering the second month of that truce, and hopefully it will prolong. It's a step forward. We've seen 2 flights fly out from Yemen, which is great, because for more than 6 years there were no flights entering. The Sana'a airport was closed to civilians. So this is a step forward towards peace. There haven't been any. Saudi Arabia, the UAE-led coalition, have not been engaging in airstrikes inside of Yemen. So hopefully negotiations, this is a step forward, and the War Powers Resolution, if passed, will make sure that Saudi Arabia continues on this path, and this is a long-term solution. So
do you think that Saudi Arabia is getting tired of the fight? Do you think that they're looking for a way to remove themselves and keep, save face?
Oh yeah, Saudi Arabia has lost billions of dollars inside of Yemen, and not only do they have ruined their reputation of what's left of it in the world stage, but in the ground, they're losing on the ground as well. The Ansarullah, or the Houthis, control 80% of the Yemeni population. They're standing all over Yemen. They hold more on the ground than when the Saudi UAE-led coalition first entered. They've only empowered the Houthis, if anything. So yeah, they're tired and they're looking for a way out. And hopefully, inshallah, this is a chance for them to stop interfering in Yemen's internal affairs, and to stop the bombing, to lift the blockade, the naval and air blockade, and to open Sana'a airport permanently.
Kawthar, at this time, we'd like to open it up to the participants. If they have any questions, maybe you could just raise your hand or put it in the chat.
Yeah, to raise your hand, you can just, we're a small enough group, you could just go like that. Or if you want to go into reactions, there's a little raise hand feature here like that. And, you get to be at the front of the line. And so that means I'm at the front of the line. Kawthar, I wanted to ask a little more detail about the War Powers Resolution, because that seems to be our best hope here in the United States to be able to help end the war. What will it be in the War Powers Resolution that will actually end the war? How will it work? Can you explain a little bit to us?
Yeah. So this War Powers Resolution will cease arms sales to Saudi Arabia, military support, logistics support, and all kinds of support, basically, which is a step towards peace. Will also limit for the US to intervene inside of Yemen. They would have to get congressional approval. So those are just one of the main components that in this War Powers Resolution that will it will not end the war, but there are steps towards peace. We cannot talk about peace if we're just continue selling arms to Saudi Arabia, or that we're supporting them in other ways or whatnot. So that's what we as American citizens can do to hold our government accountable.
Sally, I think Rashenda, did she have her hand up before?
Richenda has her hand up next. Welcome back, Richenda.
Yes.
Sally, I made a point of being here. Sorry. I mean, for 7 years, we've been demonstrating in Union Square and so on to, you know, to make people aware of the role that the US has in this war. And if the US pulled out, do you really think that Saudi would remain in it alone? I mean, if the US stopped their funding, all the funding, and stopped selling weapons and giving stuff to Saudi Arabia, then Yemen would then, I mean, Saudi wouldn't be doing it alone, though of course they do have UAR with, and I think Oman is now backing them. But they're not enough for Saudi to keep going with it, do you think?
Thank you for your question. It's a really great question. So again, I want to reiterate that, like, Saudi Arabia gets the green light from the US to do all the human rights violations that exist in Yemen, the intervention inside of Yemen and whatnot. The Saudi UAE-led coalition was not announced from Riyadh. It was announced from Washington, D.C. So it had the approval and the go from Washington, D.C. The U.S. can call them right now and tell them, stop what you're doing, or else. They know they want the U.S.'s alliance. They want to continue this partnership, and they will do whatever it takes to make the U.S. happy. So again, they're allowed to do so. Without the U.S.'s support, they won't continue.
Well, that's all we were working for, was basically to stop, to get the US to pull out. I mean, you know, if we're demonstrating in this country, the only country we can really influence, or we have any right to influence, is our own country. And so most of the all of the Yemen actions have been concentrated, that I've been involved in, been concentrating on that, rather than directly anything on Saudi. Okay.
I think Neil has a question.
Yeah, welcome, and I just missed your presentation. I'm sorry for that. I've been following you since this inception, about 8 to 9 years. I say opposite outside of change of hearts and no legislation, whether it's be USA or world or UN, is going to solve this problem. As with the same type of problems that we have in the USA, has to be a change of heart, as evidenced by the shootings in Buffalo. There's no changing. This is years and years of oppression. So to me, you said that there's no religious to this part. I disagree, because I think that outside of a divine intervention in this world, there is no legislation that's going to change the hearts of many of the people that are involved in this white supremacy and this unilateral racial capitalism that's now global and has went global, based mainly on American ideology, and continues. So I think outside of divine intervention, especially in the that's why I may say that, because, you know, if you're saying that God is good and you're taking, the only thing that's going to overcome hate is love. And if the two institutions that are religious and divine can come to agreement based on the concept of that, I think that we have a fighting chance of changing hearts. But changing legislation without changing hearts doesn't work. I do a lot of work with my legislation, and trust me, the laws are on the books. We try our best. There are people out there that are just strictly wicked. And if we don't get our hearts changed for the good to overcome evil, and more people to not be in silence and speak up against the evil, we're fighting a losing battle.
I think you have a great point there. And I don't necessarily think that legislation will end the war inside of Yemen. I think it's a step forward. It's a step to ending the war in Yemen. And I do think that these are structures in place, and the same companies, again, I went here, like, that are benefiting from this war inside of Yemen are the same companies that are profiting from the occupation of Palestine, are the same companies that are profiting off from the private prison industry here in the US. So like there's so much connections, and this is on purpose. Of course, I can't deny that. And I do believe in people power, and I especially think that like that's where people power come forward. When it comes to Yemen, I do think that like that's for Yemenis inside of Yemen. They're resisting in their own ways. For us as American citizens, what we can, I guess, be allowed to do, because this war is through legislative means, is end it, well, not end it, take a step forward through legislative means. We are not dictating the future of Yemenis, only they can do that. And I do think that like war powers resolution in itself won't end the war, but it's a step forward. It's one of the means. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you. I totally agree. It's just but I just think that there has to be some divine intervention. And I think that's the one glue that can bring people together. We can't do this based on human thoughts and if we've tried, this is not working. There's no understanding of this hatred and this perplexity and this white supremacy that's going global. So we have to come to a divine intervention where the heart is changed, where there's a circumcision of the heart. And we have the tools and we have the theory, we have the theology to do that. We just got to bring that back into the government. The system has to be run with some type of higher power. And a man is not, we're not doing anything by just coming up with these different dialogues and conversation, but there's no action in our behavior. So, I don't want to blame it on mental health, but there's got to be, in my opinion, there has to be some divine intervention. And the only ones that can do that is through your mosques, your churches, your temples, bringing on the goodness of man, as opposed to the evil that we see every day. And there is a lot of goodness, but we don't speak up on it. Until the people who are perpetuating this speak up on it and doing it and benefiting from white privilege do not speak up on it, we will always have this power.
No, definitely. More power to that.
Sally, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I thought what Neil was talking about is, trying to change things, change people, bringing a peace ethic, a culture of peace. How do we do that? And people have been trying that, and we have to keep doing that. I'm sort of pivoting a little bit back to the political, because I wanted to ask you about Iran. There's so much in the news right now with the US, was supposed to be getting back into the Iran nuclear agreement. And now it looks like that might be faltering. And Iran connection, however strong it is to the Houthis in Yemen, is that complicating our situation right now in getting the war in Yemen stopped? Because the Saudis and the U.S. government both are trying to put some blocks in Iran's expansion of its influence in the Middle East. And they're concerned about that. Are we facing that when we talk to our congressional representatives? Are they bringing up Iran? And is that going to be a problem when we try to get President Biden to to support this war powers resolution? That's my question.
Yeah, so when it comes to Iran, it comes up when speaking of Yemen. And I personally think that its role is highly exaggerated. And it's used as a boogeyman and scapegoat to continue and the aggression inside of Yemen to justify. Once you have a boogeyman, you justify why you're in Yemen in the first place. We just tell them, provide evidence of this exaggerated involvement that they continue to say. Yemenis inside of Yemen are the ones who are, I guess, resisting and whatnot. And when it comes to Yemen, Iran is, it will come up, unfortunately, but we just have to counter. There's so much allegations about its role. To an extent, you can find, I guess, ideological and whatnot support, but when it comes to this exaggerated involvement, I think that it's upon all of us to prove where's the evidence, because if so, then we're against all intervention, not just selective intervention inside of Yemen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if anything, when it comes to the nuclear deal, because of this exaggeration of Iran's involvement inside of Yemen, Iran has been using this to their advantage. They're using Yemen as a part of their negotiations with the nuclear deals. They have an advantage now because of this exaggeration. But on the ground, Yemen is really anti-imperialist. It does not matter which power it is.
Mm-hmm. There was, I saw that Emily Rubino, oh, somebody else is speaking. Did you want to ask a question? Who's 646-409?
Excuse me, Sally, I just wanted to say that.
It might be Joe Mudgett, huh? Is that
I
Joe?
just wanted to say, Sally, excuse me, just 1 second, that Kawthar put in the chat that she has to leave by 8:04, right? Am I right, Kawthar? So is this Joe? I guess if Joe Mudgett, if you want to take one more question, sure. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes. I've been following the whole conversation. Our speaker tonight is excellent, I have to say, and the questions that you brought up, Arlene, were also excellent. It's such a hard thing to get into, but just something to think about that was only partially covered tonight. The United States and Biden want to allocate billions of dollars to Lockheed, et cetera, to make weapons for these wars. Those weapons are going to buy enough for these wars. They have surpluses selling now for these wars. These weapons are for the next generation of wars coming. So, like you said, the greed and hypocrisy of the money being made on these wars are just horrible, ugly. And, the pressure comes on Lockheed Grumman, but they employed so many people across the country and in Europe to make these things. Mm-hmm. And that's the dilemma of the human race, is we don't turn weapons into plowshares, and we haven't figured out how to make a profit on peace. Right. It's just, it seems to be, so easy to make guns and stuff. Mm-hmm. America's been making guns since before America was America. So we've been doing this all our time. To change that mindset, like Neil said, to have a change of heart in this country among our leadership, and these deals between the Pentagon and Lockheed and Grumman and all these guys making the weapons, these high-tech weapons and stuff. And now we're playing games with the jets we want to sell to Turkey, and how Turkey's role is playing in all this negotiations too. It's a cabal of problems, not insurmountable. I just want to point that out, that considering going forward, I have no answers to this, because possible ways to change the economic background of this stuff to make more profit out of peace and less profit out of war. That might be a long-term solution, but right now, of course, all the things I heard discussed tonight are excellent, and what I heard was excellent, and there's no easy solutions to any of this stuff. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Sally, I have a quick question.
It's just, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to really respond to that real quick. And I think he brings up a great point, Joe, and it's not something I got a chance to get into as much, but just to talk about the military industry here that's profiting out of this. Just in 28, US defense spending was $732 billion, and that's more than 10 countries combined. And this is annually 16% of the federal budget that we taxpayers pay for. In 2016 alone, the biggest beneficiaries by country mile were Lockheed Martin, making $36.2 billion, Boeing $24.3 billion, Raytheon $12.8 billion, General Dynamics $12.7 billion. These are bomb makers that land on Yemeni homes, hospitals, weddings. So this is why, also part of like why the US is helping Saudi Arabia and the United Emirates against the poorest country in the Arab world who does not even have an air force. War is a well-fueled machine that generates lots of money, and these companies, our politicians, are in their pockets. So great point, Joe. I guess time constraints, but yeah, sorry.
Don't forget that Europe has France and England with very large weapons manufacturers too. They're also part of that team, the Lockheed team. They're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, yes, go ahead, Jack.
Very good. You answered a lot of questions and filled me in with a lot of good information. So thank you. I really appreciate that. I just have the quick questions about since this war's been going on, what's the level of medical care in the country and the educational level of the children? Like, has schools, in a lot of areas, I'm sure schools have been interrupted and people aren't getting the proper medical care. But how bad is the situation?
Okay, so great question. I don't have exact numbers for how many kids are out of school at the moment. I can circulate back if Sally would like and share it with you guys. But on the ground, like there's schools that have been bombed. Like personally, my aunt is a teacher, and I've seen her take kids to an abandoned and bombed house to teach them, even when her salary was on hold. And this was for many of her friends. She did that for 2 years because she refused to let the next generation go without education. But just a few statistics on like the dire situation on the ground. Over 350,000 Yemenis have been killed by the violence, and 2/3 results are by Saudi Arabia. Over 9,000 children have starved to death due to the famine, and this is according to Save the Children. 90% of Yemenis do not have access to electricity. Over 18 million are food insecure. Over 16 million do not have access to healthcare. That's over 16 million. That's more than half of the population. 3 million are internally displaced. And then you have 10 million people that are a step away from famine, and 7 million people are malnourished. And as with all the crises all over the world, women and children are the most vulnerable. We have 4.5 million children and pregnant women that are acutely malnourished. This will drastically affect infant mortality and development. And over 16 million do not have access to clean drinking water. And this has brought on fatal diseases, diseases that should not exist in the modern world. And now you have COVID that enters the arena, which Yemenis do not have access to resources. And for the hospitals that are spared from bombing, from being bombed by the Saudi UAE-led coalition, those hospitals, they need generators to operate because we don't have electricity full time. And for those generators, we need fuel. And because of the blockade, it's very hard for generators, for the few hospitals that are there to operate because shortage of fuel, which they need for the hospitals. And so it's really a trickle effect on the situation inside of Yemen. And a part of it, whether it's like the humanitarian crisis, a lot of it is due to the blockade. And then of course you have the bombing, and then the random shootings, and then funding of internal militias and all of that. So it's the situation on the ground. It's for the children that even want to go to school, opportunity I don't think they see life. Like they're in survival mode. Even if they go to school, even if they come back to like lack of food, family members sick, they don't have access to this or that. So it's not the best time to be alive in Yemen.
Listen, I
Thank
know
you.
you.
It's really
Thank
horrible.
you.
Horrible.
Thank you, Joe. Jack, I'm sorry. Kawthar, I know you have to go. And I just want to say on behalf of Peace Action and everyone here tonight, thank you for taking the time to come here and share with us and to enlighten us and to encourage us and to make us realize we have to do something. We can't be silent. The last time I saw you, when you were leaving the webinar, you were thanking people for participating, and you said something which I found very motivating. You said that the people in Yemen don't know that you're meeting here tonight and that you care about them and you're trying to bring on some change. So I think that's very important for us to see that we're talking about human beings that are faced with facing the atrocities of war, and which is never the answer. So we thank you and we wish you well, and please keep in touch and let us know how we can help in any way.
Thank you so much for having me here, for inviting me, for giving me the space. Thank you to all of you guys for the amazing questions, for your willingness and your openness to learn and care about this. Really, it's inspiring. It gives me motivation. Honestly, even my family back home, and I tell them about like all of these people, they're like, no way, like it's just, it's human caring about another human. So thank you all, and I hope to be that age and still be as motivated and passionate and not lose optimism. So have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Kawthar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Eileen,
Yes.
I posted in the chat a toolkit that was prepared, with the help of National Peace Action, I think.
Okay.
I just want to point it out to people, and if just for a second show you what's in it. It has, if you can see the screen, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, so it has lots of good information, like an email we can send. It explains the War Powers Resolution. It has an email that we could send to members of Congress. A press statement that we could put out, or we could revise, and tweets that we can put on Twitter with graphics. So it's like a toolkit that can be used. So we can share that with our, let me stop sharing. Got to find the place to stop sharing. But I just wanted to let people know that that link is in the chat and we could send it out to our members.
That's great, Sally. Thank you. And I think we should look at that and see how we can make it do something as Peace Action of Staten Island. Thank you. In the beginning of the meeting, while we were waiting for people to come on, we wanted to make sure that we had a quorum so that we can vote on our new board for 22-23. So can we put the names up again once more, please? In order to vote for the new board, you must be a member of Peace Action and be in good standing. So I think we have enough people here now to vote. Well, can we put the names up again, please? Is that possible?
Yeah, we can put them up again. I'm copying them. And then Joanna can read them.
Yes. If you would,
You see them,
please.
Joanna? Ah, you've got them written down. Okay.
Forgot I was on mute. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, Eileen will remain as chair. We've coaxed her into the position. Debbie and Dave Polshuk are co-treasurers. I'm the secretary. And our board members at large are Tatiana Arguello, Neil Berry, Jack Bolenbach, Brooke Kraus, Joe Mudgett, and Soji Olasule. I keep pronouncing his name wrong. Olusole, right?
Olu Woli.
He never answers. I'm not sure I'm right.
Thank you, Joanna.
But
So we-
that's the board. That's the slate.
Can we take a vote? I guess by raising our hands, if you're approve the board, we have enough. Soji, we can't see you. Is your hand up? I'm sure it is. And Joe and Jack.
Yes.
Is there anyone who opposes the slate? Okay, can we have a second? So can someone second it?
I'll second.
David and, okay,
Oh, David seconded it.
okay. Well, I think then we have our new board. And congratulations and thank you to everyone who has come on board. Without you, we couldn't be having events like this tonight, or, be out there in the community and networking and trying to make a difference. So thank you very much. I know Mohan isn't here tonight, but he served on the board. He did a terrific job, but due to his workload, he had to leave. But again, thank you, everybody. I hope that this meeting was enlightening. I don't know how it couldn't have been. And thank you for being here. As I said in the beginning, we're going to be tabling in June on the Ukraine and also speaking out on war. War in Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, where it is, it's just doesn't work. But as someone said, maybe it was Neil, you can't make profit off peace, well.
David's hand is up.
David.
I just wanted to say that many complain about the Zoom using this format as a means of doing our work.
Mhm.
I, for one, learn something every time. Excuse me. I learn something every time I have one of these meetings, except for when you get into those who have to go on ad infinitum, et cetera, et cetera. Tonight was extremely informative. It did not last long enough. It did not answer all of the questions, but I'm glad we had an opportunity to have, for example, the kit introduced, and we have that as a starting point for what we can do. I'm not certain that there is a lot that we can do. Like Neil, I think it's going to require a complete change in its approach. Our government has to do something except play both sides of the fence, the back and the middle. And the profiteering and whatnot has to be addressed. There are so many things that are involved in this simple act of stop helping the Saudis with this bombing and the squeezing for their own purposes. Our government's so corrupt, it's just embarrassing to be a part of it, but we all are a part of it and we all benefit from it. So we do have an obligation to make some kind of really concrete steps forward to make these changes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Is there anyone else who'd like to add anything?
But I'd just like to ask a question. I mean, when you're thinking of
Tabling?
yes.
You
Get
go ahead,
closer.
Joanna, you want to tell?
No,
Sharon?
Richenda's trying to talk, but you need to get closer to your computer so we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay, there's
when
going to
you're
be
thinking of tabling in
Stapleton
June,
Saturdays again.
No,
Yes.
Joanna, Richenda's talking right now.
I was trying to answer her question.
Okay, go ahead, Joanna. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joanna.
Okay. Okay, there are going to be Stapleton Saturdays along Water Street in June and September. I don't know if it's going to be actually the entire, every Saturday for those 2 months. And I've been waiting for a response from Rosa Shanowski, because apparently she is in charge of setting the whole thing up.
Oh,
So sometime in June and September is all I know right now.
Yeah, but we'll put information out on how you can get involved.
is I have the Yemen Vigil on Saturdays. You know, which is
And what time is that vigil, Vishenda?
it's 11 till 12, but you know, it's
Uh-huh.
an hour and a half to get there and back. And then I usually arrange in the afternoon. So
That's
I'll
at Union
if I can
Square,
do it,
right?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Rashenda, is that at Union Square?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Eileen, Joanne Robinson
Yes.
has her hand up.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you have to
You're
unmute.
muted, Joanne. Unmute.
Thank you. It's an excellent program. I'm your member from Westchester County, and it was a marvelous program. I just want to know, is that recorded so that it can come back to me? I would like to see it over again. The statistics, everything. She was incredible. The young woman that she presented such an incredible report from her personal experience to global to the Congress. I would just like to get it so I can hear it again and digest it, even talk to more people here. And she was, thank you so much. Thank you, PASI. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Anybody else have any comments or want to tell us about any upcoming events?
It's far too short. We need to do a redo. There,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
Yeah, I'd like to have her back again.
yeah. She was excellent. I mean, and to hear her speak, she's speaking from, she understands, and she has family there, and it's very real to her. And I think she was able to make it that way real to us too, you know.
yes.
I do think, I mean, I think she should point out, though, that Yemen is a very new country. I mean, it was two countries up until 1998, which is one of the reasons for the civil war. You know, because of the balance of the way that the power was divided.
Is there a Yemen population on Staten Island?
Yes.
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 Where do they do their
Almost.
service at? You know where their services are?
Big one in Brooklyn.
Ask and get right. There was an enormous group in Brooklyn before the Yemen war. The ones in
Bay Ridge has.
Bay Ridge, right?
Well, where are they located in Staten Island?
When they were in
Every
There's a
deli.
lot of people in Joe budget.
delis,
I was wondering if you can get one of their mosques. No, we know people in their mosques. I was just wondering if you can, would they be willing to listen? That's what I was trying to get to.
Joe
You know,
Budget here.
they're not. I mean,
Joe Budget here.
Yes,
Joe,
Joe.
Joe is trying to speak, Eileen.
Yes, Joe, go ahead.
I do know for a fact, Neil and others, that there are quite a few Yemeni students in Fort Richmond High School who I taught for the 3 years I was there before I retired in 2018. A lot of local businesses in Fort Richmond run by Yemenis who've escaped from the conflict there. And they're having their own particular difficulties with assimilation and all kinds of stuff. These kids went through hell. I worked with them for several years before I retired, and it's still there. So I don't know what the size is, but we have a significant number of Yemeni students at Fort Richmond High School for several years before I retired in 2018. I'm sure they're still there, and they're still struggling.
Well, Luther was saying that in the beginning that it's hard to get the Yemeni people involved politically, that a lot of them are apolitical. So could be another reason. Yes,
I
go ahead,
think
Louise.
I'm speculating, but a lot of people from Yemen are very glad to be living in the United States. And I can only imagine how difficult it is to want to be here and appreciate being here and also know what the United States is doing to their country. It's such, how do you process that? And my thinking is that that is what prevents people from being more involved, because it's, you know, there's part of them that is grateful for the freedoms they have here and the opportunities, but how horrible it is to know what's happening to their families who are still there, and to their country that's still there, which we are in large part responsible for.
Mhm.
You know, that's my thinking.
Mhm.
Most of the Yemenis that I know in this country are working so hard that they don't have time for, you know, and they don't, a lot of the things that, they don't, unless they actually have American citizenship, they don't want to start joining something where most of the groups are saying, US back up, you know, they're criticizing the US. I mean,
Right, it's because it's that.
Yeah.
right. But a lot of them just don't have time to, you know, they're happy that other people are doing it, but they're not, you know, they can't make the kind of commitment.
Jeopardizing.
Many of the people,
Yeah.
Yemen Vigil, have been in the Yemen Vigil for 6 years. You know, like the work, people from the worker who are there every single week, regardless of the weather. You know, they just don't have that kind of commitment, and they can't make the kind of political efforts that we make, because a lot of them don't vote. I mean, they're not citizens.
Well, they're getting there.
Yeah, but what, you know, having a green card doesn't give you a right, you know, it's very difficult.
Well, after you're here for 5 years with a green card,
You know, I mean, casually.
but you have to, there's a lot to study and learn, to,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But no, people are doing it, but it's gradual.
There is a big group in Manhattan that shows up, that organizes things at the UN on a fairly regular basis. They're all men and boys, so some of them have brought their young daughters. There aren't too, occasionally there are a few women with it. Sally, you've been at some of those, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
I mean, there is, you know, that's one very solid group of Yemenis that are working for peace.
Yeah. And I think there's also something that Kawthar alluded to, that there is disagreement in the Yemeni community. There's some people who are supportive of the Yemen government that was pretty much overthrown and had to escape to Saudi Arabia, and they were in support of that government. So in some ways, there's a group of Yemenis that are behind the Saudi efforts to put that government back in place.
And there are also Houthis here. I mean,
Yeah, so there's you know, there's struggles within the Yemeni population, but I think everybody wants the war to end.
and especially they want the blockade. I mean, if the blockade ended and food and medications could get in, it would you know, it would just make life so much easier for everybody.
It's, you know, just negotiate whatever has to be negotiated, but yeah, it's just, we don't have, you know, we're trying to solve things through military means. Now everybody's trying to get more land and, you know, make the best position before they negotiate anything. That's one of the problems.
But I would think that one of the things that we could use as a tool, or maybe even think about, is how do we change leaderships to the type of qualities that we need? You know, I don't think we get in depth into the type of leadership that we want to see across the world. More like people who are more empathetic, more leadership that's vulnerable to their own, you know, I mean, I don't think we even bring that into the process of who should be sitting at the table. You know, if that you know, look at leadership like a Putin or like a whomever, you know, doesn't have the qualities to be to be empathetic for, I think we lack that as quality. You know, we talk education, intelligence, business minded, but where are we talking about the character of the individuals that we put as leaders? I think when we start going in that direction, that's just some of the complexities, but that's something that we should reconsider, is about the leadership qualities that we're looking for future generations. I know it's not going to be in my time, but I certainly would love to see better leadership.
Mhm. I think
It's
you're
hard
right,
time in
Neil.
this-
You know,
We have a hard time in
we
this
don't
country.
talk enough about the character of our leaders. And
They are characters, and we got a lot of characters.
Yes, yes.
Now, we used to have this concept of states, it was statesmanship, not
Yes.
stateswomanship. I don't know, statespersonship, you know, that rose above, you know, and saw the big picture. You know, I always thought Gorbachev was one of those leaders. I always thought that, you know, we have had a few others, but we need more of people like him.
Yes, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Nelson
Perestroika.
Mandela would be my model for a leader. He was able to, you know, figure out how to negotiate, you know, a peaceful transition. And it's really amazing, that kind of leadership. That should be a requirement. You got to pass the Nelson Mandela test.
I agree.
And the other thing, he didn't take revenge for all the cruelty that was done to him.
Yes,
Right,
it's amazing,
right.
amazing, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
His friends up the road from Rhodesia didn't do the same thing, and now they got two countries, Zambia and Zimbabwe, and all those ex-white Rhodesians are just angry all over the world. They're now outcasts of a country they don't even belong to, and that was not the best way. Mandela and Tutu did a great job of trying to reconcile that whole apartheid nonsense. What a horrible thing, and they were great guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, folks, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It was a wonderful opportunity for us, and please stay tuned and watch for our emails and alerts about what we'll be doing. So thank you very much, and everybody have a great evening. And thank you,
Thank
Sally.
you. It's wonderful.
You are
Thank you.
the speaker.
Thank you.